Citte gahapati arakite, kaya kammang pi arakitang hoti, waci kammang pi arakitang hoti, mano kammang pi arakitang hoti.
Tassa arakita kaya kammantassa, arakita vaci kammantassa, arakita mano kammantassa, kaya kammampi avasutam hoti, vaci kammampi avasutam hoti, mano kammampi avasutam hoti.
Tassa avasutta kaya kammantassa, avasutta vaci kammantassa, avasutta mano kammantassa, kaya kammampi putikam hoti, vaci kammampi putikam hoti, mano kammampi putikam hoti.
Tassa putikaya kammantassa, putivaci kammantassa, putimano kammantassa, nabaddakang maranang hoti, nabattika kalang kiriyati.
When the mind householder is unprotected, bodily action too is unprotected, verbal action too is unprotected, mental action too is unprotected.
For one whose bodily deeds are unprotected, verbal deeds unprotected, mental deeds unprotected, bodily action too becomes tainted, verbal action too becomes tainted, mental action too becomes tainted.
For one whose bodily deeds are tainted, verbal deeds tainted, mental deeds tainted, bodily action too becomes rotten, verbal action too becomes rotten, mental action too becomes rotten.
For one whose bodily deeds are rotten, verbal deeds rotten, mental deeds rotten,
there will not be a good death, not a good passing on.
Citte gahapati rakite, kaya kammampi rakitam hoti, vaci kammampi rakitam hoti, mano kammampi rakitam hoti.
Tassa rakita kaya kammang tassa, rakita waci kammang tassa, rakita mano kammang tassa, kaya kammang pi anavasutang hoti, waci kammang pi anavasutang hoti, mano kammang pi anavasutang hoti.
Tassa anavasutta kaya kammantassa, anavasutta vaci kammantassa, anavasutta mano kammantassa, kaya kammampi naputikang hoti, vaci kammampi naputikang hoti, mano kammampi naputikang hoti.
Tassa aputikaya kammantassa, aputi vaci kammantassa, aputi mano kammantassa, pattakang maranang hoti, pattika kalang kiriyati.
When the mind householder is protected, bodily action too is protected, verbal action too is protected, mental action too is protected.
For one who is bodily, these are protected. Verbal, these protected. Mental, these protected. Bodily action too does not become tainted. Verbal action too does not become tainted. Mental action too does not become tainted.
For one whose bodily deeds are not tainted, verbal deeds not tainted, mental deeds not tainted, bodily action too does not become rotten, verbal action too does not become rotten, mental action too does not become rotten.
For one whose bodily deeds are not rotten, verbal deeds not rotten, mental deeds not rotten, there will be a good death, a good passing on.
When the mind householder is unprotected, bodily action too is unprotected, verbal action too is unprotected, mental action too is unprotected. For one whose bodily deeds are unprotected, verbal deeds unprotected, mental deeds unprotected, bodily action too becomes tainted, verbal action too becomes tainted, mental action too becomes tainted. For one whose bodily deeds are tainted, verbal deeds tainted, mental deeds tainted, bodily action too becomes rotten, verbal action too becomes rotten, mental action too becomes rotten. For one whose bodily deeds are rotten, verbal deeds rotten, mental deeds rotten, there will not be a good death, not a good passing on. When the mind householder is protected, bodily action too is protected, verbal action too is protected, mental action too is protected. For one whose bodily deeds are protected, verbal deeds protected, mental deeds protected, bodily action too does not become tainted, verbal action too does not become tainted, mental action too does not become tainted. For one whose bodily deeds are not tainted, verbal deeds not tainted, mental deeds not tainted, Bodily action too does not become rotten. Verbal action too does not become rotten. Mental action too does not become rotten. For one whose bodily deeds are not rotten, verbal deeds not rotten, mental deeds not rotten, there will be a good death, a good passing on. When the mind householder is protected, bodily action too is protected, verbal action too is protected, mental action too is protected. For one whose bodily deeds are protected, verbal deeds protected, mental deeds protected, bodily action too does not become tainted, verbal action too does not become tainted, mental action too does not become tainted. For one whose bodily deeds are not tainted, verbal deeds not tainted, mental deeds not tainted, bodily action too does not become rotten, verbal action too does not become rotten, mental action too does not become rotten. For one whose bodily deeds are not rotten, verbal deeds not rotten, mental deeds not rotten, there will be a good death, a good passing on.
First, we respect the country. First of all, the gratitude for the teaching. Second bow with respect for his virtues. Third bow with love for being our teacher. Everyone please be seated.
Welcome everybody to this 20th Sutta Study with meditation workshop on how to die a good death. First of all, we must express our gratitude to the Theravada Buddhist Council of Malaysia for organizing this nationwide, including Singapore, event. I will give you an overview of the 2 days workshop. We are going through several sections. The first one is the Root Sutta. The second is how to protect the mind. The third is what is Kaya Gata Sati. The fourth, when does rebirth occur? The fifth, properly orienting the mind. And finally, number 6, comprehension. There is a rationale for arranging the topics in this way. In the Root Sutta, the Buddha emphasized the importance of guarding or protecting the mind in order to die a good death. And that is the basis for the title of this workshop, How to Die a Good Death. However, in that sutta, the Buddha did not explain how to protect or guard the mind. Therefore, we had to go on to the next section to find out. In those excerpts from the suttas, in section 2, there is a mention of an important term, Kaya Gata Sati, which seems to be related to guarding the mind. But again, this term was not explained or elaborated. The importance seems to be there, but no detailed explanations were given. And therefore we had to go on to the next section to find out what could Kaya Gata Sati mean? You got to understand what it means in order to practice, right? If you don't know what it means, how are you going to practice? So that's very important. So that's going to be covered for today. Then the next day, tomorrow, we are going on to another topic which you may think seems rather irrelevant. When does rebirth occur? I'm sure that all of you are aware of this long-standing controversy between Theravadins and non-Theravadins, because Theravadins insist that, or assert that, rebirth occurs immediately after death, whereas non-Theravadins say that there is an intermediate period between death and rebirth. So if you're an Orthodox Theravadin, you have to ensure that you finish your homework before you die, because after that, no chance. Once you die, you are immediately reborn. By the way, did all of you do your homework? Did you all take our 5 precepts just now? You did, right? Okay, now I'm going to ask you. How many of you did not do your homework? Please raise your hands. You took your precepts, huh? Stand up, stand up. Stand up, stand up. Wow, that's a lot. Oh, more and more standing up. Huh? This is going to be practically half of them, half of the hall. Now, when I say do your homework, I mean, did you read and study the workbook? It doesn't matter whether you understand or not. If you don't understand, it's okay. All right? Okay, sit down. Now, this is going to be important because in our last discussion, where we ask you for your level of understanding and comprehension, if you have not done your homework, then you will pull down everybody's marks. Okay, so what will happen is, tomorrow when we come to this section, then all those who have not done their homework will have to step aside first. And let all those who have done their homework occupy all the tables. Okay? And then only after that, you occupy the empty tables. Yeah, so you have this group who have done their homework and those groups which have not done their homework. Alright? Then to be fair. On the other hand, if you believe in what the non-Theravadins say, that there could be an intermediate state, then even though you didn't finish your homework, you got a chance to complete it. Not to start to do it, but you have started but you have not completed it, at least you could continue to do so. Okay? Now, how or what we believe about what happens after death will influence the way we conduct our bereavement service and will also influence the way we help the deceased. Correct or not? Yeah. So that's why it's very important to know this. And we want to find out whether this orthodox Theravadin view is really supported by the early suttas. In the early suttas, did the Buddha categorically refute or deny that there could be an intermediate existence? Okay, that will be what we're trying to find out tomorrow. Number 5 is properly orienting the mind. Well, today we are going to find out how to die a good death by protecting the mind or guarding the mind. Once you know that, then actually you don't need to attend tomorrow's workshop because you don't know how to die a good death. But besides protecting the mind, what else can we do to prepare ourselves for a good death? Okay, that's what this section is about. And this section will be dealing with mostly lots of deathbed scenarios where the Buddha or his disciples would counsel the dying or would give advice to people on how to counsel the dying. And finally, the last section on comprehension. We have covered a lot of grounds, many suttas that you have read through. So we wonder how much you understand and how much you can remember and apply in your daily life. So this is what it's going to be about. We're just going to ask you questions. No need to do homework. You just answer how much you have comprehended and how much you can remember and apply in your daily life. Now I'm going to approach all of these 6 sections in 6 ways. First, I'm going to give you an introduction, which I've already done, a general introduction to all the sections. But I'll be more specific for each section. I will try to go through the excerpts and give you a summary of what the excerpts are about, and also to caution you or remind you to be focused when you discuss the topics for discussion. Because there could be many irrelevant details and you might get caught up in them. So don't be distracted by the irrelevant details of the extracts. Be focused on what you're looking for. The details are given to show you the context in which these words were spoken by the Buddha. That is all. Don't get lost in the details. So after I go through that, then you will have a discussion. And you will have a total of 20 minutes for a discussion. 10 minutes first, and then after that, you'll be followed by guided meditation. Another 20 minutes. And then after the guided meditation, you will resume the discussion for another 10 minutes. This is by default. However, there are some discussion topics which are very profound and you may need more time, and I will adjust accordingly. My guided meditation sessions will be oriented towards daily life practice. So I want to ask you a question. During your daily life, are your eyes open most of the time or closed most of the time? Answer. All right. How many of you have been practicing meditation with your eyes closed? Hands up. Majority, right? So when you train your mind to practice only with your eyes closed, can you practice with your eyes open? Cannot. So you're going to meet with a lot of resistance on your own part, and you're going to have a very steep learning curve, because I will require all of you to open your eyes during the guided meditation. As I said, this is oriented towards daily life practice. If you train your mind to practice mindfulness with your eyes open, then you have a choice. You can practice with your eyes open or closed. On the other hand, if you train your mind to practice only with your eyes closed, then you can't practice with your eyes open. And you have very good excuse. You have a very good excuse in your daily life. Cannot meditate, eyes open, how to meditate? So I'm going to make sure that you don't have any excuse. So you practice with your eyes open, and you have a choice. When your eyes are tired, you can close and still meditate. Alright? So please try to exercise discipline, patience, and persistence. Even though you find it very difficult, of course you will. If you have trained your mind to meditate with your eyes closed, you will find it very difficult. The first thing people complain is how to meditate. So many distractions, right? But during your daily life, your eyes are open and you are bombarded with distractions, so it means to say you cannot practice at all. Right? So you better train your mind to open your eyes and get used to these distractions and learn how to cope with them. Right? Make use of them actually as grist for the mill, as organic fertilizer for the tree of wisdom. Alright, so please try to keep your eyes open. It doesn't matter if you blink. You are allowed to blink as many times as you want to, as long as you keep your eyes open. My videographers say that they have caught many people on video with their eyes closed, and he's going to send this to China for facial recognition. And he's going to remand all those people and stop them from coming for future workshops. Okay, so after the 20 minutes of guided meditation, then you will resume your discussion, and after which then you will have a presentation. It is best that before you start the discussion, your group agrees upon a representative who is going to represent the views of your group. So at the end of the discussion, I will draw lots, and the lucky groups will come out to present. Depending on how long the presentation will take, I will draw the lots. Yeah, if you take a shorter time, you can get more groups to present. If you take a long time, less groups to present. And remember, you are representing the views of your group, not your own personal view. There are also facilitators for each group. And I want to remind everyone, especially the facilitators, that their job is to ensure that no one monopolizes or dominates the discussion, including himself or herself. That everyone has a chance to speak, to share their own opinion. And secondly, the facilitator is to ensure that the members do not digress and come back, to the topic of discussion. Okay? So these are the two main functions. After you present, then I will give a summary. In other words, I will give the answer to the discussion topics. And if you still have any doubts or you need any clarification, please feel free to ask and I will try to answer. Okay? At the end of the day, tomorrow, I will give a grand summary and conclusion for the whole workshop. For today, we are just going to cover 3 topics. I've already given you an introduction to an overview of the 2-day workshop. We are going through the Root Sutta, the second section on how to protect or guard the mind, and finally what is Kaya Kata Sati.